Right. Dear students, this is a on the behalf of this institution innovation criteria. That innovation thinking has to be developed right from budding age, like you, those who are in second year or third year. By the time you come to fourth year, you should able to do some innovative products so that the your knowledge increases, as well as your innovation is going to be awarded properly. I think you know that outside world, if you observe, many innovations are coming from students like your age. So our college has got Innovation Institute Council. Under that, we are asking outside people to interact with you to create an innovation thought to you. Under that, we have invited one such candidate called Raka Chaitanya. He has come with an idea of design thinking. He's actually MVSR's mechanical engineering students, and he passed out from ISB. He got innovative ideas how to design and how to develop that thinking process among students. So I welcome Mr. Raka Chaitanya to apprise or inculcate the design thinking process in our young budding students, so that by the time they come up to the level of doing project works, it can be useful to them. Thank you. Raga Chaitanya, please take over. Credentials, someone has to read out. Sharma? Yes, credentials of not this. Right.
చైతన్య గారు ఒకసారి అన్మ్యూట్ లాగౌట్ చేసి మళ్ళీ లాగిన్ అవ్వండి. Sir, you use your mic through mobile and share the slides to laptop. You join with mobile also. Chaitanya garu use mobile for voice.
Hello. Is it audible now?
Yeah, audible, sir. Little louder.
Okay. Better now? Hello.
Little louder, sir.
Still a little louder. Okay, that's my highest pitch. Okay, should be better now. If I'm right. Yeah.
Okay, you can start, sir. Once if you tell me, I will stop sharing and you can share your slides.
Yes, yes. I think I'm good to start because we already lost 15 minutes. So I'll start sharing the screen.
May I stop, sir, sharing the slide?
Yeah.
Okay, you just start some introduction. I will stop sharing.
Okay, sure. Um, okay. Hi, everyone. Firstly, thanks for giving me this opportunity. It's been 9 years. I graduated from MBSR. So it's good to come back to college and especially kind of mentor the students and give them the new insights about the current age of thinking. So it's a good opportunity for me, and I'll be happy to start my presentation. Yeah. So can I share my screen now? Okay. Just let me know once my screen is visible. Uh,
Yes, visible.
okay. So I'm sure all of you must be thinking when we say design, thinking, and innovation, are we trying to focus on some design activities or something? So no, it's not exactly about designing something. It's just about how exactly should we train our minds on the way how we approach the problems so that we can better reduce the error rates. So that's indirectly that improves efficiency and indirectly that leads to better innovation. So that's why this thinking is labeled as design thinking. So, um, so just a short gist about myself. Just before I move on, just want to know, can I just get one confirmation from everyone that my voice is audible clearly, or should I just adjust any tone or
Sir,
something?
it is audible. Just press the hide button, sir. Hide.
Sorry.
Hide, hide. Click on
Okay.
the hide.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You can
Fine.
proceed, sir.
Okay, sure. Thanks. So, just a short gist about myself. So, I'm an analytics strategy consultant and I primarily work with the banking and financial services. I'm currently working for HSBC Bank now. I'm sure all of you must be knowing it. It's called Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking and Financial Corporations. I've been all across the 9 years. I've been working across different multinational banks across different areas, and it's ninth year now for me in this domain. What I do, so basically, as it mentioned, so basically, I drive some innovation activities in my team, and also I ensure that new digital practices are coming up so that we adapt ourselves in this industrial and the digital era revolutions which are happening on a year by year basis. So that's primarily my work area. And my hobbies, I watch and play cricket. I'm also a blogger and reader. I do a lot of reading on Medium. So I'm sure most of you must be knowing about Medium. I'm also a content contributor on LinkedIn. As mentioned earlier, I'm an alumni of MBSR and I also did my post graduation from ISP. And that's my LinkedIn network. This is just a picture about myself, which was captured in Singapore FinTech Festival, which I attended 2 years back. And this certificate is the primary reason why I started giving lectures to, or maybe I can say mentoring different schools about design thinking. So this is something which I just completed. This is a collaboration with HSBC and Stanford School, which I completed in the last couple of months. So which is why that has, like, I probably thought of sharing it back to the colleges so that um, so that students can be equipped about how they need to think and make use of this design thinking in their curriculum right from the college days. Okay. So this will be the quick agenda. I know we already lost 15 minutes, so I'll try to quickly cover up and maybe skip some sections. So I don't want to run across, but yeah, basically it's going to be about what exactly is design thinking, what is the history of it, and who are exactly being benefited from this design thinking. What are some real life examples we have, and how does the future look for it? And last but not the least, it's gonna explain about how schools and colleges are gonna exactly or make use of this practice, and a small interactive session at the end, which is gonna probably understand about your what exactly you understood. So that will be the conclusion part of this meeting. Sorry. So, as you see here, so have you anytime been curious about to understand, like you must have come across all these brands before, like Starbucks, Pepsi, Apple, IBM, Nike, and Netflix. So this is something which we come across in our day-to-day lives. So these are the companies which have pioneered to such a level, and they have been effectively practicing design thinking so that they can build better products for better customers and sorry better customer experience, and indirectly they are trying to be a pioneer in their particular fields. So just want to know, like, do you know how Bank of America helps customers money save their money efficiently? If you ever visited a Starbucks store, you must have observed that the tables are some tables are round tabled and some tables are flat tables. So there's a design thinking behind it on why exactly is that done. I'm sure most of you here, especially the students, know about Netflix. So you must have heard about machine learning and AI algorithms on how the best films of choice are recommended. But even before you kind of recommend the best films, there are some exercises which Netflix does. So that uses the principles of design thinking. Similarly, tech giants like IBM and Apple are also using design thinking to an extensive practice. So on and so forth. I'll be covering all these topics in detail in our lecture. So just before I go on to the other slides, just want to know if any of you are curious on any of like, did any of you get any time did you think of any such questions which are put up here? Like how does Nike create best products, or how does Netflix create best films? So feel free to just unmute so that it can be a very good interactive session. So anyone from the faculty or students, if you ever thought of such questions coming to your mind or anything beyond as well. Okay, okay, I'll take that as a no then. Okay, so coming to a point, what is design thinking? So as I said earlier, design thinking is basically an innovative, human-centric, and an empathetic approach adopted and applied for problem solving across multiple domains. So this is a thinking which is applied domain agnostic. So it's not something which is only adopted by tech giants or only adopted by government bodies or someone like that, but rather it's something which is interdisciplinary, and anyone from any domain can adopt this design thinking practice. So what exactly does it do? So there are some 5 steps which are listed down. So I'll just come to that before I cover the second point. So basically design thinking has 2 elements to it. So you call it as a divergent thinking, like an inverted funnel, and a convergent thinking, which is like a actual funnel process. So when I say funnel, so I'm sure most of you must have seen how, like when we pour a petrol, like the funnel is very broad on the top, and ultimately at the bottom, it exactly goes to the tank of the vehicle. Similarly, your thinking process also is assigned on the same lines. So when you're thinking or when you're starting to understand about a problem, you have to be more broad about your thinking process. So which means you must be having a divergent thinking element. And finally, when you're trying to solve your particular problem, you have to ensure that you're just reducing all your odds out and you're finally being convergent about your problem and ensuring that you're applying the right solution for that right problem. So having said that, those are the 2 main elements which cover the design thinking, which is your divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Now, what are the 5 phases you have in design thinking? So empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So as the words say, empathize, define, empathize. So basically it is about, so as you all must be knowing that problems do exist in and around of us. Like it can be a very small problem, like for the example, in the pandemic times.
Chaitanya sir, can
Yeah.
you keep your mic near?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Is it okay now?
Yes, it is okay.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So empathize. So when I say empathize, what exactly it means is it is more of getting that human touch of understanding the person. So, for example, during the pandemic times, we all know how much we rushed across for getting the medicines or finding out a hospital. And we have voluntarily seen many people coming across who never knew that they're going to come up with such a voluntary practice. So it is about understanding the customer needs or probably people's needs so that you can solve the problem more efficiently. We didn't have any government's helps, or we did not have anyone's help to, like, we had apps coming up, we had our own Facebook and WhatsApp chats, which kind of helped us understand about, we have food being provided here, we have medicines being provided here. So it all came up voluntarily, nothing was driven. So that's the empathizing element. So for any problem to first start off with, the initial pillar is about empathizing it, which means you have to start speaking with people and understanding their problems thoroughly so that you can better understand and ideate the solutions for their respective problems. Because what happens is, in our, I wouldn't say in the our current age, but at least in the previous few years, we in generally create solutions which may not thoroughly solve the problems. So that is something which design thinking is trying to bridge the gap. So we are trying to make more meaningful solutions so that the problem is being solved appropriately without any gaps. So that's what empathizing is all about. Engaging with your customers, engaging with your people. It can be anyone, but about more about speaking, understanding their needs, and then finally then you move on to the next step. So it's more of a physical interaction or more about understanding their needs thoroughly. Define. So once you start understanding about what exactly are the, like, once you start interacting with people, that's when you kind of understand that, okay, now there are some problem elements which I have jotted down, and now these are the problematic areas which these particular people have. So, and then you start thinking about ideas of how better can you develop solutions for those particular problems. It's like a mind mapping game. So you know these are the problems, these are the solutions. A straightforward answer. That's what your ideate stage says. And prototype. So prototype is something which is becoming very important. I'm sure most of your students at engineering know about prototypes, because prototyping is very important, because you cannot directly implement or deploy your solutions in the market. Rather, you have to build multiple prototypes, take multiple feedbacks, and finally come up with the best solution so that you don't have any gaps created. So that's why prototyping is a very important step even in design thinking. And test is something we all know. It's something which we just ensure that before we are just hitting on the market, or any thought process we are applying it, we have to ensure that whatever value or the purpose on why we have started this design thinking element should be served. So I know it was a lot of information, Tom. That's why I've created a visual chart in the next slide. Probably you'll get a better understanding. So the second picture here speaks about divergent thinking and convergent thinking. So as I said earlier, we all, like, our traditional schools and colleges have been focusing us to be more about convergent thinking, and we tend to focus very much less on divergent thinking, which is like accepting more ideas, accepting more views, and then finally coming across with a better solution for it. So I've just jotted down some, like, this particular um, this particular picture here on the right side basically finds out what are the important divergent thinking elements and what are the convergent thinking elements. I don't want to go deep into it, but probably I'll just cover one examples for you. So as you know, divergent thinking, your flexibility and adaptability is something which is very important. So that's primarily falling under your empathize and define functions. And convergent thinking is something where you're just being more logically reasonable, and whatever traditional things we have been doing from schools, you're given a book, you learn from it, and then you write your exam. So that's a convergent thinking. So that's prime. So most of our school and college days lies in convergent thinking, and we are like, the current era, we are trying to focus more on divergent thinking as well, where we have open book systems coming up, and children trying to be more innovative, and students trying to be come up with their new ideas for solving environmental or more bigger problems outside in the market. So that's something which most of the schools and colleges have started implementing, and this is something which you can see in the near future. So just moving on to the next slide. So this is a small summary of whatever I spoke there. So basically these are the 5 stages. In the first stage, as I said, you're just kind of focus on what are your wants, needs, and objectives. So you're doing that by interacting with people, and then you're understanding what are your want, what are their wants, what are their needs, what are their objectives for the for a particular problem or an opportunity. And then you define what are your problems, what exactly is the problem statement you're trying to solve, and then you kind of identify if there are any patterns in different problems which have been addressed earlier. So that's something which you're doing in the define stage. And then in the ideate, it's basically about creativity and ideas where different people bring on different things onto the table. Basically, you can think it of a brainstorming exercise. Finally, in prototyping, it's all about bringing tangible products where exactly you're trying to build up something, take the necessary feedback from the SMEs, and try to improve or you're kind of improvising your prototype. Or in a cases where it is not solving the business purpose, you're completely you're not investing money to go it beyond a prototype. Rather, you're just stopping at the prototype section because it is not solving your business purpose. So that saves a lot of money for any institution which identifies the business value at a prototype stage. Test. So test is basically about just linking back your dots on all the previous 4 stages and all have been achieved or not. And now just linking this particular diagram with convergent thinking and divergent thinking, as you see, empathize and define is something which speaks more on the divergent thinking. Ideate, prototype, and testing is something which we speak more on the convergent thinking aspect of it. So that's pretty much about design thinking. I'm sure you must have just got a small gist about what exactly the topic for today is. So I'll quickly move on to the next slide. So a quick background about what is this design thinking and when did it particularly start. So the roots go back to 1960s, where basically there were professors and theorists who kind of tried to understand how exactly design is being related to science. So as you see in the 1960s and 70s, a lot of work was done to understand how exactly design methodology was being applied and how exactly can we kind of link it with science and engineering fields back those days. Also in 1970s, I'm sure we started listening about artificial intelligence and machine learning of recently in the last 5 6 years. But this was something which dated back then. As you see that we are trying to solve problems by understanding from a both visual and cognitive thinking perspective. So that is when even design was something which was as a particular subject was added to science back then. I just gave small examples about some people to watch out because these were very important people who kind of played a major role in design thinking. Um, so as you see, for the example on 1970s, prototyping and emphasis was put on left and right modes of thinking. So there were some theories on how our brain perceives when we are using our right side of the brain and how our brain perceives when we're using the left side of the brain, more of the logical aspect of it. 1980s, there was a very interesting thing which the committee of design science have found it out. So they kind of conducted some experiments to understand how exactly do scientists and designers thinking methodology is. So scientists are basically an evolving paradigm from the engineer's brain itself. So you can think of scientists as engineers. So if you see the result on the bottom, it basically says scientists were more focused to be problem focused solvers, which means their vision was looking at the problem always, and then they were trying to solve all the like their solutions were only problem focused. But on the contrary side of it, designers focused to be more solution focused, like they were more solution focused solvers. So which means it's the same, like it's the same focus, but the approach was slightly different between designers and scientists. Today, design thinking is an element which takes theories from scientists' way of thinking and designers' way of thinking. So that's something which I just wanted to highlight here on what exactly happened before. Um, Also, in the year 1980, there was a very interesting term called satisficing introduced. I'm sure, like since I'm giving the lecture to the triple students, we all have like tend to find an optimal solution for optimal solution for any of the problem which we are solving. But in generally in the concept of design thinking, we do not have any alternates, optimal solution as such, but you have a range of satisfactory solutions which kind of can be accepted by a whole set of people, which is why it is not a satisfying solution, but rather a satisfying solution. So just a small lettering change there. So that's just thought of adding that particular point there. Um, 1990s. So this is when design started to kick off, mostly in the universities. As we all know, Stanford and all those universities started to bring in design thinking schools, and they kind of had incubators coming up, which focused primarily on design-centric approach, which was taken across by multiple business schools and also by professional bodies who started to take help of the incubators from these particular schools. So IDEO is something which was incubated from Stanford. I'll be covering this in the next slides. So I think that's it from the history side of it. I don't want to spend much time here. Okay, yeah. So I'll just take a pause. So any questions on the design thinking or history part of it, like which you wanted to kind of make, like have more focus from my side? I'm happy to kind of put it across. Okay, I'll take that as a no. Um, so how exactly can design thinking benefit? So as it says here, okay, we have been following different strategies for thinking, and we are trying to achieve a better path for solving the problems. But what exactly is being achieved from this? So this benefit is not something which need not be only from a revenue perspective, but there are some other aspects to it. As it says, the first point, it's kind of fostering more creativity and innovation coming across. So I just want to read out that sentence for you. A go-to approach for removing blinkers and constantly finding alternatives to tried and test methods. So as humans, we tend to always focus on what exactly is existing before we're trying to implement that. We don't want to move away from that particular methodology, which was like, we don't want to try to find new ways. We are more happy with the already tried and tested methods. So that is something which we are trying to evolve from. So we have to evolve as our technology and industrial revolutions is evolving every year by year. So which means our creativity and innovation levels also have to evolve at the same pace. So, providing challenging assumptions and beliefs, tending out to be the out of box thinking, exploring new pathways and ideas. So, this is something which is very important for any organization, maybe a educational body or any IT companies or any governmental bodies. Creativity and innovation always should be the primary driver uh, to ensure that we are always in pace. So, for example, all the banks few years back, what like I'm sure you must have heard the term called fintechs, which is called financial technologies. So, fintechs are such small companies which came up to compete with the banks. So, for example, Paytm is a fintech. Cred is a fintech. Your Phone Pay and Google Pay, to an extent, are fintechs. So, what exactly they did? They tried to find out what were the loopholes in the banks. Banks are all legacy, like banks have been existing since age old days, and today for them to kind of thrive with the, like, they have to constantly drive innovation. That's something which they found it to be very hard and cumbersome. So which is why they started to collaborate with such fintechs, and with that, what exactly today we are doing. So few years back we were struggling to log into any mobile banking app, remembering all the passwords, and then you have 5 accounts, remember all the 5 banking accounts, and then note it in a paper, and it's something which was very challenging for us. But today, with the help of Google Pay, Phone Pay, and Paytm, we're able to just transfer money digitally, hassle free between accounts. And how did this happen? It's all innovation. So it's all something where we looked at the core of the problem, try to understand what exactly can we do so that customer satisfaction is at the highest. So that's why creativity and innovation should be motivated, and it should be a very important sell for any organization. Time to market reduction. So this is something where, as I mentioned earlier, all the 5 stages: your design, test, and iterate. So you kind of think about a problem. You know that you have to develop a particular solution, but how fast can you develop it is something which determines your go-to market strategy. So, for example, your Paytm app. So when the pandemic struck, we all knew that we were all locked up at home and we couldn't go out. And we knew that we can't go to a grocery store which is just nearby. So what did Paytm and PhonePe apps do? Rather, they kind of added a feature so that you can just order stuff from their particular apps, so that you need not even go for a particular store. And we all know how Google Pay or any of the tech platforms have helped us to kind of uh, uh, to kind of reach out or have our needs, especially during the peak pandemic times. So that's something which you have to do very quick. So speed is something which is very important, and design thinking can help do that. So which is why time to market reduction is a very important, because if you're thinking about something today in January and you're implementing sometime in December, sorry, you're out of the race, because time to market, go to market strategy is a very important element, because there are there is heavy competition going on, and if you don't come up across with a faster solution, maybe you'll be out of the race if you come up with something by the end of the year. So timing is a very important element. Similarly, cost saving and better ROI. As I said, this is the crux of any organization, where you look at cost saving and getting more revenues on income. Just to give a gist, there was a survey done by McKinsey where it was found that implementing design thinking and human-centered approach gave about 30% of revenues for most of the organizations. And as you see, IBM, for its cloud computing platform, they have come up with a solution which indirectly has reaped the profits of 300% return on investment. So these are all the numbers which come outside once you start implementing such design thinking practices or any innovative practices which kind of benefits your customers and indirectly boosts your company. Customer retention and loyalty. So we all know that. Um, like the way, since students are here, I just want to say, you can think it like your Facebook followers or Instagram followers. So no matter how many good posts you do, what is more important? What is more important is your followers. So you may create good stories, but if you don't have followers, sorry, you're not known to the outside world. So similarly, for banks and organizations, customer retention and loyalty is a very important element, which means at all times you have to have a big market share, which means you have to ensure that whichever customers are coming, they stay with you and they don't go for alternative ones. So which means customer retention is a very important element, and with the help, with the principles of design thinking, you can achieve it at a better cost. And you must always ensure that the customers are being happy, and whatever they must know that whatever focus the company or organization makes, it's more customer driven, and it's not something which is profit or market driven sequences. So that's the fourth point. Scalability across organization. So this is something like, let's say today all the triple students are hearing about design thinking. Probably you come across with an idea that, okay, probably this is something which we can implement and kind of focus. Probably this is an innovation practice which the triple department can do. So once you succeed in implementing it, probably your other departments in the college also can think of implementing that. So that's called scalability. So which means when you design something for one particular product line, you have to, like, if it's being scaled across the same organization across different units, that's a big advantage for the for any company or any education body or anything. Which by scalability across organization is something which can be achieved with the help of design thinking. So that's that about what exactly are the benefits you're reaping from that. Again, since there was a lot of word jargon there, this kind of help, kind of a small gist about what exactly are the benefits you're achieving here, and it particularly speaks about whatever I explained in the previous slides. Just a second. So we'll be starting with the real life examples, and trust me, this is going to be very interesting. Okay, so before I move on to this, any questions from anyone, faculty or students, on the history or the benefits of design thinking, or any questions, feel free to ask. Please unmute and then you can ask. I'm happy to answer. Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay, so I thought of highlighting some real life examples, because though I put across in the slides and tell you this is design thinking, this is achieved this, it may not go, you may not particularly understand what exactly is being achieved, which is why I brought across 6 real life examples. I'm pretty sure after the 6 real life examples, you can relate it to how exactly design thinking has been helping out to your uh, products which we use every day in our lives. So Bank of America. So as you see in the picture here, Bank of America, being a bank, it was trying to kind of acquire more customers so that it can improve the way of having more accounts. So that's something which every bank does, right? So every bank wants more customers, and indirectly, if it has more customers, it has more accounts, and indirectly, its deposits and loans can increase. So that's indirectly giving a good market share for a bank. So that was an so the reason why I highlighted problem or opportunity. So not all problems need not be looked from a problem lens, because sometimes some problems can be an opportunity as well. So which is why I kind of mentioned problem or opportunity. So just like I hope I clarified that. So keeping that thing in mind, to acquire more customers onto their particular platform, they wanted to understand what exactly can we do something innovative so that people can come across to the platform. So what did they do was they started interacting with people, which means their customers, and they started understanding about their needs more. How are their saving patterns, how are their spending patterns, and all that stuff. Surprisingly, some of the insights which came out were people uh, people were trying to save more rather than what exactly they were saving in their banks. So that's something which Bank of America understood. But because right, human tendency is to spend more. So you at the start of the month you think of saving $100, but at the end of the month you ultimately save only $50. So that's the human tendency. So they wanted to improve that factor for humans so that you not only save $50, but you go up to a good margin, at least 80, 90, or probably $100. So that indirectly makes the customer happy, and indirectly the savings of account of Bank of America is also increasing. So what did they do was, whatever purchases a customer is doing, as you see in the picture here, it was kind of it created a product called Roundup Concept. So which means when you go to a coffee store and you kind of order for a coffee, so like if you're trying to do something which is environmentally friendly or something, it kind of gives a reward next to it. So basically it says, okay, good that you have used a plastic bag, because of which this is something which you saved. So what dramatically happened was the that particular app was giving a list of, for whatever customer purchases happened, it was also letting you know how much the particular customer saved. So that indirectly boosted the morale of the customer. So that was a simple concept which they did, and as you see, the result was Bank of America gained more customers, and they also indirectly increased the cost savings for the bank. So it's just a small tip off. So basically, they just created that intent so that the customer feels happy on what exactly he's saving, and that's it. That help bank understand, that help bank acquire more customers, and also customer is very happy because indirectly he's saving more money in his bank. So that principle was adopted by Bank of America from the design thinking principles, and this was a very famous example and case study which was discussed across. Similarly, Starbucks. So Starbucks was kind of finding out a drop in sales and having a poor margins. They were trying to understand what exactly was a problem coming across for. So they started interacting with more people and trying to understand why they were not feeling to come to Starbucks, or if they do come as well, why were they just preferring takeaways and not to sit in the coffee? So surprisingly, the insights what they got was the customers wanted an atmosphere that provided a sense of belonging and relaxation, which means they wanted to feel like home, which means the moment you start feeling like home, you can just open your laptops, you can just use your gadgets and sit at one place for hours and then speak with people and all that. So that indirectly makes the customer stay at Starbucks for a longer time, which means indirectly he is buying more products from Starbucks, and Starbucks revenues are increasing. So that's an element of design thinking which Starbucks did. So as you see, tables were positioned strategically to make solo coffee drinkers more comfortable, so that they don't feel that, okay, I've just come alone to the coffee shop. Rather, I have my laptop and I have my separate space. I'm enjoying my coffee or a sandwich, and probably I'll buy something else in the next hour as well. So that was a small trick which Starbucks did, just changing their flat tables to round tables, and just look at the way their number margins just went to a skyrocketing way. So I need not tell about Starbucks today on what exactly it does. So similarly, Netflix. So I'm sure all of you must be watching some of the other series or movies on Netflix. So at the start of Netflix, when you open an account, you know that there are some movie recommendations that ask you about, okay, what genre movie what do you want, or what is your liking and all that. So that's at the start when you open the account. But as you keep watching movies, there is a set of recommendation which Netflix does. So there is an algorithm which Netflix uses for it. But here the problem was, even though the recommendations were coming for Netflix, like even though the recommendations were, sorry, even though Netflix was giving the recommendations to the customers, what exactly happened was people were not watching it. So Netflix thought it was a big problem for them. So after starting to interact with customers, they understood that the core of the problem was, like from a human tendency, when we observe something static, we just tend to not focus much on it. But when we observe something which starts sliding or moving on, we pay a lot of attention on it. So that was a small trick which Netflix took. So with that, what did they do was, um, for any movie poster you see, the moment you click on the poster will not be more active. The the trailer of the movie or the series starts playing, which means it indirectly makes the user to see more of the content, and he'll forget about the poster. So he's being engaged with that particular trailer or video which is being played. So with that, they could better define and adjust their algorithm so that they can recommend better movies to the customers. So with that, people spending time on Netflix increased and the revenues of Netflix indirectly increased. So a small change, a small focus on what are the customer needs and customers' perspective has kind of reaped much benefits, as you see here in the case of Netflix and in our previous case as well. Similarly, Nike. So I'm sure all of you know about Nike. So Nike is a global leader in terms of manufacturing sports shoes, and we know they have been pioneering in all the sports industries, and they're also pioneered in the Olympics and most of the sporting events sponsorships in terms of kits, clothing, and even clothing and shoes as well. So ultimately, it's a shoe company. So as we know, so even though Nike was pioneering in all such sports, there was one sport where they kind of found it very difficult to kind of master, and that was skateboarding. So skateboarding is a very famous sport in US. Um, so that act would require the person who is actually using it to jump across the board and come back on the board again and again. So which means there has to be a lot of grip on the shoes, and uh, Nike was not concentrating on that particular element. So what Nike did was they started to interact with a bunch of skateboarders personally. They wanted to understand what exactly were their problems, and they tried to fix that particular problem for them. So as you see in my third point, which is the change initiative, Nike added more padding with more durable materials and upgraded insoles for their lineup of shoes dedicated as Nike SB. Now, they understood what exactly was the problem. They did that change initiative from the insights which was drawn. And as you see in the result, Nike won the 2020 People's Choice Award for the skateboarding category shoes. So a simple problem, by interacting with the customer, understanding their problems in a empathizing way, they could solve a big broader problem, and indirectly it made them more famous. I know we still have 40 minutes. Uh, so I'll play a video here. Is it okay? Just let me know if the audio is coming.
You share the videos.
Yeah, I'm sharing. Just a second. Just let me know if the video is playing. I'll just enlarge it. Is it playing? Can someone confirm?
Sir, it is playing, but the sound is not audible.
Okay.
Sir, you do one thing.
Okay.
You copy the link and keep it in a tab and share the tab.
Okay. Okay. Just a second.
You share the tab, sir.
Yeah. Um, okay. I think there is. It's a small video, so probably I'll skip that because due to lack of time, I think I'll show other video which is more useful. So probably I just want to skip this Nike one. So I want to go back to the presentation because we do have some content to cover. So just let me know if my screen is again visible.
Yes, visible.
Okay, so I'll go back to the content. So basically, that video was kind of explaining about what are the problems Nike athletes were facing and how exactly Nike kind of addressed their problem. So that's fine. I'll share the links probably after the presentation. So now, going back to IBM. So as we all know, IBM was the first company to develop the supercomputer, and they have been pioneering in the technology space back then. So similarly, when the cloud computing technology came across in the 2012-13 years, IBM understood that this was a technology which is going to be there in the market for a longer time, and they wanted to kind of have a dedicated application platform for it. So for that, they wanted to kind of understand that how exactly they can knowledge, or probably they can make their customers get used to cloud technology. So which means they have to build a platform even before others do, and that should be a unique one which makes them acquire more customers into their bucket. So that was the idea. So it's an opportunity. Again, it's not a problem. So what exactly they did was they created a initiative called BlueMix. So this BlueMix is an initiative which they created back in 2014. Basically, it goes by three principles, which is observe, reflect, and make. So that's an iterative process, as you see the inward, as you see a horizontal 8. So it's just about how you approach something, how you kind of reflect on your particular customers, and how you iterate that particular process. So they just use this particular platform for their cloud computing area, and trust me, as you can see, their revenue shooted up massively, and they went across beyond 300% when, and this particular BlueMix concept was inspired from their design thinking practice. And people who are interested more on IBM, so there is a separate space for design thinking from IBM. So if you can just go to Google and just type design thinking IBM, there's dedicated website and space on how exactly design thinking practice is done by IBM. So trust me, it's going to be very interesting who wants to look into the technology space of it. So um, yeah, so this is a Mobisol is a it's a basically a energy company. So they're more into sustainable energy providers. So it's a German, it's a small company which is based out from Berlin in Germany. But they primarily work in the African areas. Like that's where mostly their business is driven. So this is a very interesting concept, which where they use design thinking. So the problem was, as we all know, like the Saharan African countries are a bit like they are a bit back. They're just they don't have that much of reliable energy sources, and they lack a lot of um, like electricity, water, and all that. They're a bit behind on how the other part of the world is going across. So what Mobisol wanted to do was they wanted to understand and they wanted to provide electricity for them. So with that, what happened was they got some few interesting insights when they started to kind of deploy uh, electricity lines uh, in Saharan African region. So after they started surveying the users, interesting insight which came across for them was that it's not exactly the electricity which is a problem there. But what exactly was a problem was the distance in which they were trying to access either electricity, power, or anything. They had to travel multiple miles and then get something. So distance was a problem there. It was not actually electricity. They were able to afford costly mobiles. They were having good gadgets at home, and they were having all sorts of things. And they were also affluent. The thing was, they were not having uh, such sustainable energy practices, because of which they had to travel to different places to get electricity or whatever kind of an energy mechanism. So with that, what Mobisol did was they created a self-sustainable and reliable maintenance infrastructure with a plug-and-play installers at doorstep and solar panels installed. So this is like they have just created solar panels on top of everyone's house, and I'm sure as all of us must be visiting malls. In malls these days, if you run out of charging your mobile charging, you have separate devices. There are some standalone devices which are kept, and you can just go charge, pay how much ever you like. Let's say you're waiting there for half an hour, pay for the 30 minutes, and then take back. So that's a new way of getting your like mobiles charged or any of your gadgets charged. So the same concept would apply there, which means every African home, or at least most of the African homes today, have a solar panel installed on top of their house, and they do have a plug and play chargeable mechanism which is kept in front of their households. So as you see, the user experience pivoted, and almost 74% of the rural households started benefiting from this Mobisol innovative solutions. So this all came across with their design thinking practice of empathy, going and then ideating. So understanding the core of the problem was something which Mobisol did. They could have just gone across, they could have just deployed some electricity lines, and their approach would have been sufficed over there. So what did they do was they went two lines further. They went to the customers, understood their core problems, and then kind of came across with a different solution which was more innovative, and indirectly it helped in increasing the market share, which means a better user experience from different customers. So yeah, I'll just probably show you this video. So I'll just take a minute because I'll just stop sharing and okay. Looks like there is some issue. I think there is a lot of lag, so perhaps I can't share. Sorry for that. I'm unable to copy my links. That's our main problem. I'm trying to do it, but okay, no problem. It's fine. I'll go back to the presentation. Um, so basically, this video kind of explains about how exactly the customers were able to see electricity, what problems they initially had, what Mobisol did, and how exactly the customers or the people over there got benefited, and how a sustainable practice was developed in that particular African community. So I'm sorry I'm unable to share that video, but if time permits, I'll probably share it with your faculty. Okay, so that was about the real life examples. Now, so there were some research examples also which were focused. I just brought across two papers here, which was mainly about focused about the engineering side of it.
Chaitanya garu, do you have that video?
Sorry, which one?
Do you have that video?
Yeah, I can share the links after that.
If you want to play, you can share through tabs, sir.
The thing is, my so I don't know why, but when I'm sharing something or when I quit sharing also, my PowerPoint loading is very bad. So I'm unable to copy the link also. I don't know why. So there's a lot of buffering which is happening. So that's why I'm unable to play the video.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll see if time permits in the last. I'll surely, since we have 25 minutes, I'll surely try to show that video. So it's going to be very interesting. Okay. Some of the research examples. So as you see here, there was a lot of there were a lot of papers which were mainly I've just stated examples here from Iowa University and IIT Bombay. So basically, they were using design thinking to understand how exactly different domains like electrical, computer, and software engineering students think and how the subjects can be integrated. So I don't want to delve much onto this, but I'm sure this is going to help the college as a the college to understand how design thinking is not something which is focused on one particular subject or a subject or a sorry okay a subject or a particular engineering field, but it is domain agnostic, like it can be applied to any engineering field. So here this paper was primarily focusing on electrical and computer and software engineering and how exactly the curriculum can be redesigned so that it's better matching with what the outside world is needing, which is the industry standards, and also students being equipped with design thinking practice right from their domain or the engineering subject areas as well. So that's something which this paper focuses on. Design thinking in engineering course design. There was another good article by a lady called Soumya. So she was pursuing her PhD research in educational technology. So as you see the title, it says engineering design thinking skills in the context of analog circuit design. So basically, what she was trying to do was she was trying to focus her paper more on how exactly divergent convergent thinking skills were coming across and how exactly the learning theory and cognitive science research was being applied at all stages. So again, this is a very beautiful paper. I've just shared the links here. So probably after the session, I'm sure the faculty might share it to the students as well. So I don't want to go deep on this, but yes, just wanted to give you a gist that it's not only real life examples which are there by companies, but also it's about research which is happening at university levels as well. So that's something. Just wanted to give a picture about how prototyping does, or maybe ideation does. Sorry, not prototyping, ideation. So I'm sure most of us tend to forget things, or we don't we generally keep a lot of thoughts in mind. So it's a very good practice to keep labels and then stick on to a tracking mechanism of what you want to do and what you want to not to do. Probably tasks completed and tasks pending. Similarly, even in design thinking, when you're doing a user-centric approach, you take or you accept ideas coming from different people. So which means you have to accept like an inverted funnel, you accept all the ideas put it on a particular wall, evaluate on what is important, what is not important, what is more prioritized, what is not prioritized, which can bring more benefit, which cannot bring more benefit. So once you start keeping in the conditions and finally come across to the prototyping stage, probably you'll be just ending up with probably 4 or 5 labels, which means you had 30 or 40 stickers put onto the wall. And finally, once you come to the prototyping stage, you're just coming up with 4 or 5 stickers, which means you're not trying to discount what others' ideas are, but you're collaboratively thinking on what is more important for the problem or for the solution, and the problem vision is maintained at all times. So basis on that, you're kind of taking a optimizing strategy and then negating the ones which are not needed. So in generally in companies, this is how they do it. Like the examples which I stated earlier, the Apple or the other ones, this is how they do the design thinking approach, where they accept ideas coming from different peoples, and finally they collaboratively stick to the good ones or probably the best ones which are making more meaning and sense. Okay. Still we have 21 minutes. Okay. So future of design thinking. So I'm sure we spoke about history, we spoke about real life examples and all that. So we need to understand what exactly do we get when we're going to implement this in the future. So probably a very important line on the top, it says design solutions are perfect. The problem is that perfect is subjective and depends on perfect for what, which means, um, as I said earlier, you may have solutions for everything, but how long lasting are the solutions is something which matters. So a perfect thing today might not be a perfect thing tomorrow. So everything is going to be obsolete, which means you need to create solutions which are more adaptable and evolving, and it shouldn't be stagnating to one particular problem at one particular point of time. It's simple like money. So a 10 rupees which is valued 10 years back, you know what is the value today. And similarly, 100 rupees which is valued today, you know what is the value to after 10 years. So on the same lines, it's called the discounting principle. Similarly, in design thinking, you have to apply the discounting principle whenever you're approaching a problem or a solution, so that your solutions are scalable and not focused on one particular problem at a particular point of time. So that's what it says. Systems thinking. So a thinking which focuses on the line where one needs to switch the tools or systems. I know it's a bit of jargons here, but what exactly it says is, so probably I'll give you an example. So Google and renewable energy. So we all know how Google started. So we know Google was a web browser engine back in the 2000 days, and we know what they are today. So they're not a no more like they do have the Google Chrome and they are a web browser, but we know what exactly they are beyond Google, beyond the web browser. So having said that, with the scalability and their mass of products which they developed in the last 20 years, they have different data centers on different locations, which means when you have data centers across the globe, you need to have so when you have a data center, you're indirectly using a lot of energy, it's computational energy, infrastructure, and all that particular aspects. So which means like Google is indirectly kind of when it's setting up data centers in multiple locations, it has to understand that there is a problem which portrays to the environment in a longer run, because it's kind of creating more power generation is happening. You're using a lot of infrastructure space. There's a lot of emissions which is coming up. So having said that, what smartly they did was they invested in renewable energy, which means on one side they're growing by developing their infrastructures and data centers. On the other side, they are focusing more on renewable energy. So if you like, I'm not sure if I can play this video again, but yeah, so in this video they basically kind of let you know on how Google is kind of focusing on renewable energy. So they follow a cyclic approach. So whatever products or whatever elements Google uses, 64% of them are recycled and they're used by the second tier or the third tier technology companies. So that's a very interesting fact, because they're not burning something or they're not dumping something somewhere. They're using it something which is being used in some or the other forms by some or the other company. So we know what is the importance of renewable energy in our today's habitat. So that's something which systems thinking focuses on, which means a human centered approach is something which you're trying to solve problems at a different level. Systems thinking is something which, the more we focus on problems, the more systems you're developing. So which is why systems thinking is something which focuses on what tool you need to switch at the right time. So that's something which it says. Um, so resilience thinking. So this is again a good example about how you evolve during any particular problem phase. Interesting example, as a word says, resiliency, which means you're being resilient for any kind of like a storm is coming, or a, the third wave signals have started. So you have to start becoming resilient, which means you have to keep all your gears up, and you have to keep your mindset in such a way that you're more resilient enough, like wearing masks, keeping hand sanitizers and all that. So similarly, interesting example here. So the example is Maginot Line in France. So this is a wall which was developed by French back in World War II, because uh, sorry, the Germans were attacking them from the other side. So this just happened before the World War. So they thought constructing a wall is going to make the Germans not come across. So they thought once we create the wall, that's it. The Germans are no more going to attack us. But that didn't serve the purpose, because the moment they created the wall, immediately World War II struck, and it was very easy for Germans to just break the wall or just climb the wall, and then they could easily attack the French army in a matter of lesser minutes. So here, when you look from the French army lens, did they focus on the right problem? No. Their solution approach was a bit different, which means they focused on that problem, thinking that once we create this wall, we are enough, we are safe. But no, that didn't solve the purpose. They had to be more broad in thinking. Probably they had to improve their army, they had to improve their riflery and military equipment, so that they can better be resilient to when the German army is coming to attack. So similarly, why resilience thinking is important under design thinking is, as I said, there are a lot of gaps observed with the industrial and the technology revolutions happening every year. So when we are not resilient enough, or acceptance for change is not there, we may soon be obsolete, which means all the educational bodies or a company which is resilient for change, whatever outputs we are giving, it may not actually meet the purpose outside. So that's a threat which we are seeing. In fact, there was a survey done in terms of resilient thinking to understand how much of the subjects which are being taught at the engineering or the school, like research is happening heavily on the school side, not on the college side of it. But yeah, so we know whatever we learn at the early ages acts as a pivot for us once we become adults and start implementing at our work areas. And we know that there are a lot of gaps, like what we study and what we work on. There are a lot of gaps which is observed, because of which there is a lot of skill sets gap happening in the market. So resilience thinking is something which focuses on that particular point, which says we have to be ready and resilient enough to ensure that our thinking and approach process should be always aligning with what the market and the industrial standards are asking for. So that's something which pretty much the resilience thinking says. Future of design thinking. Just a second. Yeah, we have 13 minutes. I'll leave the last 5 minutes for question and answers. Yeah. So human-centered design and inclusive design. So human-centered design is something, I'm sure most of you must have watched the news about how sustainability and climate strategies are being adopted by different government bodies. So India has set a, like Narendra Modi, when he visited the Glasgow summit in the last few months, in November, there was an agreement done that we're going to be net zero and carbon free by 2070. So that's a long way, but we have to set the path right from now, which means we have to start adopting the sustainability practices from today, which means that we're gonna achieve the target of 2070. So basically what human-centered design says is, when you try to approach a particular problem, you're not only focusing on one particular category of people, but also you have to understand what are the implications for other category of people as well. So simple. So I'm sure all of you must be knowing about the Swachh Bharat mission which was launched. So what exactly are we doing? We're not throwing waste on the roads. So when we throw a waste on the road and come back, there's no impact to us. But who is getting impacted? It's the animals, or it's a rat picker who's taking them. He's dumping in the dump yard, and that's going into the oceans. So there's a cyclic effect to it. So this is what the diagram on the right side says. Um, Let me just zoom in a bit. Yeah. Okay. Is it visible now, the diagram? Okay.
Sir, visible.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so basically I'll focus on the left and the right side. So basically, as you see on the left side, there are some human-centered approach, which is a pyramid structure, and there is an environment-centered approach, which is more cyclic, which means everything is in a balanced format. Nothing is on the top. But on a human-centered design, you're trying to be more on the top. So yeah, in terms of intelligence and everything, yes, we are the humans are the best in the world, but that doesn't mean that we destroy our ecological balance. So which means whatever actions we do, it we must understand the indirect actants for it and who is getting impacted with that. So today, if I throw a waste or I start burning more plastic, and I have a vehicle which releases more of smoke, there's no impact for me, but there is someone who is getting impacted. With that, what is exactly happening is we're trying to increase the global warming, and the earth is becoming more warmer, which means our generations to come further will be the ones who will be impacted indirectly. So because of which this kind of a lens, like this is just an example. So human centered design. Okay. Oops, sorry. So human-centered design, it's I've just taken climate as an example, but on an overall, if you see whatever action we do, we must understand the end products and the byproducts of it. Who is getting impacted? Who is getting benefited? And is it necessary for me to do this particular action? And what exactly am I achieving with this? So these are some homeworks which we kind of tend to do in a human-centered design approach. That's something which we can expect companies and organizations to focus on human-centered design. Inclusive design. So inclusive design, I'm sure all of you know, inclusiveness is about not segregating people basis on races or creating any biases in work environments basis on the color, ethnicity, or any aspects of it. So as it says, a design with a wider range of perspectives, thought styles, and backgrounds. So I'm sure you must have all heard about the firing which happened in US 2 years back. David Floyd, I'm sorry, I'm not getting the name. So he was killed, and you know how much of an outrage happened in US uh, against the Trump government. So which means organizations are struggling to ensure there is an inclusive environment, which means all categories and all sections of people are respected and there is no bias, which means there are no hierarchies, and everyone's feedback is as important, right from uh, a junior person till a director level. Everyone's feedback is important. At the same time, ensuring that the design, inclusive design principles are always kept at all stages. Uh, so this is a very important concept which is implemented by most of the organizations, and inclusiveness is a very important element for all our organizations. And we do have subjects and topics which we get every quarterly to complete. So we do have some learnings as well. And that's a very important thing for students who especially go into organizations once you graduate from the schools as well. Okay. I still have 8 minutes. Probably I'll try to quickly wrap up because I just want small exercise from all of you. So that's going to be a bit interesting. Okay, so what is it for colleges and schools? So yeah, this is the thing. So we do have some set of questions here. So I don't want to read out all of them, but how exactly can we start? Which means how exactly can we start that emphasizing phase? So firstly, you have to identify where are the problems and you have to start interacting, which means the faculty have to interact among the faculty and understand what exactly are the problems between the teaching staff and the non-teaching staff or the principal or the leadership. So that's a kind of understanding which they do at that level. Similarly, at the students level, they have to understand and interact with the lecturers and understand, okay, I have problem in this particular space. So that is how the design thinking process initiates. So just want to read out some examples. So in the curriculum part of it, how might I engage my students in completing ways around learning world history? Okay, that's not a proper example. I'm sorry. Um, how might I help children from divergent backgrounds to increase their vocabulary? Okay, spaces. So we do know that colleges, mostly in the third and fourth years, students don't tend to come to college, right? It's a big problem. I know students enjoy it, even I enjoyed it, but mostly faculty find it very challenging. Ensure that the attendance percentages are improving, especially in the third and fourth years. So that's a big problem for most of the engineering colleges. So there should be there should be innovative practices kept by the colleges as well, so that students don't tend to go out, or probably they have something more interactive which they can do at the college itself, not at the classroom, but within the college campus itself, so that they start focusing more on there and they start less focusing outside the college premises. So that such kind of problems from the faculty lens, they can probably focus and start implementing ideas there. And if your attendance percentages are improving, which means your design thinking practices are good in implementation. Similarly, in process and tools. So I'm sure that all the foreign universities have a uh, they do have dedicated websites, and they do have dedicated alumni networks, and they have a very strong technology team in every college and university. So with that, they're able to network nicely on LinkedIn. They're able to keep a constant touch with people who have passed out. But when it comes to colleges, especially in the Indian colleges, we slightly lag behind in terms of the efficient technologies, especially for college websites or a college alumni network, or keeping in touch with the alumni over social media platforms is something which we are developing, and we are in that progress. So that's something which the faculty can kind of focus on, developing a process and developing efficient tools so that they can improve on different ways of problems which they identify. Similarly, systems. So I think process tools and systems goes hand in. So that's pretty much about that. Just giving you a gist about what problems can you start focusing on, having the design thinking lens. This is an ideal workflow. So this is again the all the five stages which we saw at the start. Uh, so if you see the yellow pattern, it basically, so the first two phases, as I said, you're having more number of ideas coming in, you're discovering more, you're gathering more responses from people, and finally, once your interpretation stage and you're moving to the ideation stage, you see the funnel going down again, which means you're moving from a divergent thinking to a convergent thinking. Again, from the ideation to the experimentation stage, again, the reason why the funnel is going across, because you're taking constant feedbacks. Like, you have to improvise, because no one solution has a, like, you cannot expect a best solution in the first chance. You have to iterate, you have to keep on improving basis on the problems or the feedbacks you get from different people. And then finally you come across with the final one at the evolution stage, which is why between fourth and fifth you see the funnel line going very narrow, which means you have come up with the right solution approach for the problem which you have discovered at the start. So that's something which I just wanted to give at the start ending. Um, this is an interactive session now, so I'll just come to this in a minute. Uh, I'm sure most of you must have just been curious about, okay, what exactly is this design thinking? Looks like it's multidisciplinary. So I've just listed down some online courses which are very beautiful, like for people who can do it free of cost, and some are charged as well, and also some toolkits which are free of cost available online. So I'll be sharing with this with your faculty, and I'm sure this is going to be very helpful um, once you start pursuing in your free times beyond your curriculum activities. Okay, so I have 3 minutes. So can I take extra, like, can we go beyond 5 minutes now, or should we end it sharp at 4 p.m.? So just want to take the feedback from faculty. Hello.
Chaitanya sir, is it over?
Uh, yeah, so probably one last thing. So if all of you can just go to, like, if you can just open your mobiles or laptops, and if you can just copy this, like if you can try scanning this QR code, or you can at least access this link, it should be helpful. So I've just created some 6 7 questions.
Sir, you can share that link in the chat box.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, okay. Yeah, please access the link. I've just designed some 6 7 questions basis on whatever we did. So just see where the multiple options apply and where single options apply. So I'll also share those results probably once all of you confirm you're done. Yeah. So if we have time, I can share the links of the videos. You can share it, or if you have to end it, I think I'm done with my session. It was nice. So probably I'll wait for if any Q&A from anyone, any questions to be addressed or something. I'll be happy to answer. But please take the poll. So that's going to be interesting. So any questions from anyone? Q&A, anything on design thinking or anything to apply for your particular area? I'm sure at least I've given a gist. I know it was a lot of dump of information. We just want to kind of give you a kick starter so that at least you have sowed some seeds of design thinking. Probably you can just take a look on those examples on how different companies and different papers were published. So I'm sure that's going to be really helpful for students who are in their third years and fourth years especially. So, may I know if everyone has completed the poll, or should we take time for that? I'm not sure. I think there are 20 odd participants.
One question from a student.
Yes, yes, please.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Hi. Yeah.
It's been great listening to your classes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Actually, I'm from Tripoli. Could you
Okay.
please tell me how the design thinking is useful in our field?
Yeah. Okay. So as I covered there, so a lot of electrical companies are also implementing design thinking. So to name, I think Ola Electric, who are mostly into EV vehicles, they also have a design thinking wing in them. So basically, to your question, I think I'll just probably try to be more elaborative. So it's not that you're from a triple department and we have to apply a problem there, but it's more of understanding. Okay, for example, let's say so you primarily work on circuit designing and transformer designing and all the particular aspects. So you have to kind of come up with different ways of understanding how exactly or how better can you design your transformer. So at least in India, we know that when a power goes, transformers start bursting off. So we have to sit 12 hours, 14 hours without current. So that's a problem here. So I'm just taking an example. I might be wrong because I'm telling you. So probably there are some, like, probably we can build more efficient transformers, or you can create more better transformers which are water resistant, or where the lines don't get cut immediately after heavy rains. So that's how you start focusing on. So it's basically about in your particular area in a triple field, you start looking at where the problems are. So I just gave an example of a transformers. So similarly, there can be any other thing. It can be in your college, or it can be any industry or anything. But ultimately, what is the problem you're choosing and what the customer is facing? If you're able to bridge that gap, I think then you can implement your design thinking principles efficiently. All the 5 stages. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So any more questions? Okay.
Okay. Okay, Rag Chaitanya sir, thank you for your valuable presentation. So, on behalf of students and faculty of Maharashtra Engineering College, I want to highlight some concluding remarks. So, yeah, explained about the importance of design thinking with real-time examples, and have nicely narrated different types of design thinking and future of design thinking explicitly. Design thinking role in schools and colleges, and really have triggered the young minds with idea on practicing design thinking in future. Definitely our students and faculty got benefited by this uh, ideology on the design thinking. So we are very much thankful to you.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was nice. Thanks for giving me the opportunity as well to the Triple department and Matrushri and MBS Higher Education Institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please complete the poll. So probably I'll share that as well. Thank you very much. So I pasted the link in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.